ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the meeting of the North Penn School District Board of School Directors, September 9th, 1997. The meeting tonight is a special action meeting. This meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to no more than 5 minutes. This limit will permit time for all those who wish to speak to the board to do so. Whenever members of the audience exceed this time limit, the board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. And this is in reference to Board Policy 8344.2. At this time, would Mrs. Hatfield lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, absolutely. It's a good job right here on the Pledge of Allegiance. Nice to hear kids' voices. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move on, let me make an announcement that we were in executive session at 7 o'clock this evening and concluded at 7:31 for matters of personnel and potential litigation. At this time, I'd like to make one announcement on a matter, and Dr. Bose has one on another matter. As you know, sometimes our meetings get very, very long, and often people sit in the audience and wait a long time for a certain subject to come up. Sometimes it helps if we have an idea in advance why more people are here than usual. And if things could be said in the beginning, it helps with that wait. I am in receipt of a memo from Mr. Lawrence Feely. He is a principal, chairperson of the NPAA Meet and Discuss Committee. It was provided to me today, September 9th, and it's a request for a full meeting of the North Penn Board of School Directors. He has written this memo at my request. I had the privilege and the honor to speak with Mr. Feely last night on this professional business matter, and consider him somebody very, very easy to talk to, and have appreciated his employment here, and also have appreciated him as a principal where my children had attended. But anyway, this request is to meet with the full board, and that will be arranged. That evening we will talk about 3 things. We will talk about money, we will talk about this board, and we will talk about the administration, cabinet, and cabinet leadership. We will discuss issues as they relate to morale. This board, 18 months before it had to, settled a teacher's contract and have provided the community with the association with labor peace until 2001. We may have to sit at the table and do the same thing with the administration. Enough's enough. We need more answers, less gossip, less speculation, less whispering, and we need face-to-face talk as adults. As board president, I don't know what else to do with my job than to do just that. And I need the help of the entire board to do that, because 9 people are responsible, and so is a well-paid cabinet. So that meeting, I will get back to Mr. Feely, and that meeting will be arranged within the month of September, hopefully, and look forward to start that process. It worked with our association after a tumultuous teacher's contract in '95. And if it can work under those situations, then adults meeting face-to-face can work out their problems again, and have great faith that that can happen. On another matter, new matter, Dr. Bose.
President Mango has suggested, and I think wisely so, that I comment on my recommendation for additional teachers, which you'll find under personnel on your agenda C4, before there are any comments from the audience. I plan on recommending tonight under C4 that the board approve authorizing me to employ 4 additional elementary teachers in addition to those approved previously when the budget was adopted for the 1997-98 school year. And I'll determine the allocation of those as we finalize the numbers, which are now stabilizing with respect to daily enrollment reports. Right now, I'd be inclined to consider placing those additional teachers at Gwinnett Square, Montgomery, and North Wales elementary schools. And that recommendation will be a consideration by the board when we get to personnel C4. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your time. Audience of citizens, please come forward, state your name and address, and we're here to listen to you. Madam.
Good evening. My name is Ruth McDevitt. I live in Montgomery Township, 123 Oxford Lane, North Wales, Pennsylvania. And I just would like to comment on what Dr. Bose just talked about, being one of the teachers at Montgomery Elementary. I have a daughter in the 6th grade at Montgomery, and our family has been extremely happy with the educational environment at Montgomery since we came here 5 years ago. My daughter Mary has been diagnosed ADD with a learning reading disability since 2nd grade. To date, my husband and I have provided medical treatment as well as private tutoring for the last 5 years. This, along with the very strong support of the Montgomery staff, my daughter Mary has done extremely well. My fear is that with the class sizes this large, Mary and other children just like her will not have the proper learning environment to be successful. I urge the board to hire an additional teacher at Montgomery for 6th grade so that the class sizes may be brought within the district guidelines. Thank you.
Anybody else, please? Madam.
My name is Brenda Person. I live 105 Longleat Avenue. I was very relieved to hear Mr. Bowe's comment about possibly recommending that a new teacher be hired for Montgomery Elementary School, and hopefully that teacher will be assigned to 6th grade, because I was really worried about how any superintendent that would expect children to learn math under conditions of 41 in a classroom. Even though now Montgomery Elementary has 30, 30, 31, when the children are divided according to achievement levels for the sections that require a homogeneous grouping, it doesn't work out 30, 30, 31. And we now have a situation in which there are 14 children in one math class, 41 in another, and 29 in another, and that is just simply far too many. Other than just the learning environment, I'm concerned about the safety environment. Having 41 children in a classroom, germs, conduct. So thank you very much. I really would hope and encourage the school board to listen to Mr. Bowe's recommendation, and would hope that this would not happen again, so that children would be able to start in September, settle in classes which they can become used to their teachers and won't have to be shifted over and over again. Thank you.
Anybody else, please? Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, superintendent's report.
I recommend the board approve the contract with the North Penn Medical Transport for the 1997-98 school year to provide coverage for middle school home sports events for an amount not to exceed $9,600 for this year, and presented to you as item 114-97. The contract has been reviewed by Solicitor Sweet, and I believe Solicitor Bartle has had the opportunity to review the contract as well. And this will provide coverage in the event of injury or accident at these home sporting events.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by White, second by Sher. Board questions to the right, Mr. Schilling.
No question.
No? To the left?
This will be negotiated every year?
Yes.
Thank you.
And this is the first of its kind, Mr. Mosey.
I know
We've never
that.
done it this way before, and thank you, our board, for working on this.
Thanks,
Judy Miller. All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All opposed would say nay. Thank you.
The next recommendation has to do with a handicapped child, and it's a recommendation that the board approve an agreement reached between the parents and the school district regarding a student whose name is on file in the Office of Student Services and Special Education for education for the 1997-98 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mosey, second by Schilling. Board questions to the left, Mr. Mosey. Around. To the right?
Only that I would recommend that we perhaps put a document identification to this, since everyone else, I recognize the confidentiality requirement, but there should be something to identify and connect that to the minutes.
Mrs. Hatfield, will you note that for the record, please? All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Thank you.
Moving on to personnel. Recommend approval of Dr. Alice Johnson as Acting Director of Student Services effective September 10, 1997 at a salary of $400 per diem.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mosey, second by Krieger. Board questions to the right.
Question only in the contract, many times these per diems are salary only. Is this salary plus benefits, or is this?
Salary only.
Okay, just for clarity, for public's perception.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Thank you.
Next recommendation seeks your approval to appoint Eileen Dwell as principal of Penfield Middle School effective September 19 at a annual salary of $80,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by White, second by Allen. Board questions to the left.
Yes, I do, Madam President. As you stated, we have had our first meeting with the NPAA last week, a meet and discuss. And it was my understanding, we come out of that meeting that Mr. Hill chaired the meeting. And we come out of that meeting and we were to discuss, left it with a charge that we were to look at benefits and we were to look at some job descriptions, and also it was my understanding, and the three of us talked about it, that we were always also going to look at salaries, entry level as well as salary caps. And it appears to me now that this has been taken out of that committee's hands, where we're automatically setting a starting salary for middle school principals of $80,000.
Mr. Mosey, if you'll recall, that task force that you allude to was to make a determination for salaries effective in January 1998.
Oh, so I see, we're not, my understanding was that we were going to make a determination about performance-based or merit increases starting January of 1998.
Right.
But it was the understanding, and the meeting that Mr. Bill chaired, was that we were also going to look at entry level as well as salary caps. We were going to make recommendations to establish some sort of order as far as administrative salaries go. I checked Regulation 2510 today, and I also saw that in the regulation there are 7 levels for administrative pay, or 9, I'm sorry. And I spoke with Mrs. Miller yesterday, and she told me that she did not have that schedule. And I'm just at a loss, because if we don't have that schedule, if it's in the reg, we're supposed to have the schedule, and we don't have it, then how are we determining salaries? And I really see that anything we do is going to be counterproductive. It's not that I know Mrs. Dwell, I met her, and she's a fine lady and a good principal, and it isn't anything personal. But I don't have my chart with me tonight, and I apologize, but I look at salaries and I just kind of see them all over the place as far as what some people were making in similar jobs. And I really thought that one of the things this committee was going to do was bring some sort of order and some sort of, permanent guidelines to this.
Let me speak to that. But as chairman of that meet and discuss group, what Mr. Mosey brings forward is factual. We had there is a concern among the administrators that the salaries that they are being compensated for as related to surrounding areas, and the job is not up to what they believe it should be. And we understand that concern. And there's always been a concern in the board relative to that we have a clear description of all the administrative jobs. As time moves on, as this district changes, as conditions change, jobs change a little bit in the roles that they play and the time that they consume in the job. The description may relatively stay the same, but the functions, the time they perform each particular function is going to change. And so the purpose of this committee as a total issue is to review all the administrators' job descriptions, so all the administrators and everybody agree that the job description that they have or currently have is really what they're doing, and if not, let's correct it and bring it into focus to what it is. Once we have established that, which we hope to do yet this month, is that we want to proceed in several different areas. One of them to continue to look at how we evaluate the administrators relative to merit. Merit should be tied to salary, and we're proceeding in that area. There is merit reviews for them now. We want to see what we're doing now and how that can be upgraded. We're also looking at the benefit package for administrators, and that's being reviewed at the current time. Once we have those reviews, once we have the job descriptions, and then we want to look at the surrounding, where they match up. You got to remember, you can't necessarily look at the salaries for principals in one school district and the salaries for principals in another school district. They all work the same number of days. Is the hours the same length? Is the job, there's a lot of different parameters that have to be weighted, so it's not a trivial task to make this comparison. But we're going to do that. And once we have established that, then we're going to establish what the salary range should be for these different positions, what the starting end, what the top end is, and then how do you go on from year to year? Do we tie it to the cost of living plus a merit? What way do we do it as we go on? All of these things are yet to be determined, and that process is just getting started in that area of doing this thing. The question comes tonight relative to the approving the salary for a principal at Penfield Middle Schools. While we're in this process, and I want to continue this process, so we do have a good guideline, and we also determine what Mr. Mosey brings up. There are nine salary grade levels or 9 bands. We got to make sure where each one fits in what band and what the number is in those bands is a corollary to what I said. But as we proceed through that, which I want to complete, or hopefully complete within the next couple of months at the latest, I'd like to have this wrapped up no later than November sometime. And so we can determine where we are and where we're going. But we have to face the real world today. We have to face the needs that we have today and fill the positions. We have a school starting. We have staff we have to fill in today. And in doing that, we have to pay the appropriate salary that is needed to get the quality person that you want for that particular job. And what is true, the $80,000, we don't know today, as I sit here today, where that will fit into the band for this particular job description when we get done, but I trust it'll fit within that band. So based upon what Pat brings up is a very good point, and I'm very, Pat Mosey and Sharice Krieger on this committee with me, plus some administrators, and I'm very anxious to get this done with their help and to get this completed so the whole board has something to work with. But it's going to take us a while to get there, but I think on this particular motion, I think we have to approve this because we got to move ahead today and get this job filled, and I can't wait until I get this resolved in 2 months from now and then decide what that salary should be or should be different than it is. And my feeling is it's in that band. Period.
But Don, the problem we have, if we do this, then haven't we established $80,000 as a starting salary for middle school? I mean,
no, we haven't.
Are we going to go back in January and say to Mrs. Drew, we're going to give you a cut?
No. We decided she's going to be paid $80,000. Where that fits in the band is it determines on what her ability was when she came into the band. We may have decide to give her 80,000 or 80, whatever that is in that particular band.
But I thought we were going to establish that band.
We will establish that, but I can't, we gotta put this person in a job today. I can't wait till November to establish it.
Well, we have a middle school principal now who's making 78 or 77,000, who just got the job last year, and I believe it was a $6,000 or $7,000 increase. And now we're taking someone who doesn't have as much time in the district, and as Mr. Berlando, and or Dr. Bland, excuse me, and we're going to start her right off the bat at $2,000 more. And again, it's nothing personal to Mrs. Dwell. I think this is circumventing what the committee was set up to do.
Okay.
And I'm not going to vote for it, and that's all I have to say, Madam President.
This side.
Well, I have to agree with Pat for the reasons that he has reiterated. I would suggest to the board at this time, until we've established those parameters, which I'm sure will be further discussed in front of the whole board, as you pointed out earlier at the beginning of the meeting. I think what would be more in line is to keep Mrs. Dwell at the current salary, which if the board looks back on the last two budgets, Mrs. Dwell has an established salary that is in line with the other principals at the middle school level now. And because of that, and because of a previous memo that the board received that I referred to now, Dr. Bose had stated in that memo that he's looking to recommend in January an increase for the other principals to fall into parity with the established salary, $80,000. This is establishing that salary. This is, in a way, circumventing the works of the board. It is establishing a precedent in regards to this particular position's salary. And I think what would be more in line is what we've asked the rest of the administrators in the school district to do while we're in this negotiating process with their association. And that is to stave off their increase for this budget year until January. And we've asked all of them to do that. And I don't think it's fair to ask an entire group to wait, and then as these individual positions come up, grant them the sizable increases that are way and above what all the other administrators are going to receive this year, or at least what the board budgeted for. And that's my concern. I have no problem with the recommendation to place Eileen Dwell as principal at Penfield Middle School. What I'm asking is for a delay in the salary until the board has finished its negotiations and that all of the administrators are on the same plateau. Everybody is in the same boat. And I think to do anything else would be basically favoritism, and I can't, if you want to separate the appointment from the salary, then I'll be able to afford it a proper vote. I don't want to have to vote against the person. So whatever the majority of the board has decided to do tonight, those are my comments. Thank you.
I'd like to try to clarify for the board two things. Number one, there is a task force that the board has established that's meeting to decide this, as Mr. Mosley pointed out. And its purpose would be to establish what is done in the future. This is a situation with which we must deal here and now. We have one middle school principal who's leaving to take another job. That's going to be vacant at the end of the school day on September 19th. What we're doing is moving somebody there to take that job effective September 19th. That makes a lot of sense, otherwise we'll have a vacancy. And the second thing I'd like to point out is that this board, this school district, does not negotiate with its administrators. That's a violation of Pennsylvania law. It meets and discusses and talks about those matters of mutual interest. It does not, it has not, in my knowledge in the past, and I know now, does not negotiate with school administrators.
Dr. Rose, I don't think I said we're negotiating. If I did, I stand corrected.
You
But
did-
through the
you did say
budget
that.
process, the board established the administrative increase for the year.
And the
And
board
because of
established a
that-
task force on which you and Mr. Mosey
Yes,
served.
but because of that decision, there are some underlying troublesome issues facing us, Dr. Bose, in regards to our administrative staff. And in light of all of the resignations in the last couple of weeks, with more to come, I have a grave concern about separating out individual people and giving them sizable increases over and above what the board has decided to give this year in their budget. And that's
In the hierarchy of your concerns, are you more concerned that we would have no principal for Penfield School?
Dr. Bose, are you trying to say that Mrs. Dwell would not take the position
That's
with
precisely,
the understanding
that's precisely what I'm saying.
that
She will not take the position frozen at an elementary principal's salary.
This is not frozen in an elementary salary. She's not at an elementary principal's salary.
She's an elementary principal now. Why would we be paying her a middle school principal's salary? She is making an elementary principal's salary, and you're suggesting that we freeze her at that salary as she assumes a middle school
No.
principal's job.
No, I'm asking for her to abide by the same terms through the meet and discuss that the other administrators are tied to. We have
I don't
an
understand.
understanding with them. We have an MOU with them.
What other administrators have moved to a different position and remained at the same salary?
Dr. Bose. It doesn't matter, Dr. Bose.
It matters to Diane Dwell because I've talked to her. She will not take this job for less than $80,000.
Dr. Bose, this committee may decide as soon as November that this would be the incoming salary for that position. But right now, it's premature. Dr. Bose, how can you say then at this time
Because
that
you used
you
the,
can't bring forward the other
you
principal's
used
salary?
the subjunctive
to the
tense
same.
of the verb. You said may, not will or shall. You said may.
Well, okay.
So there's no guarantee, is there?
Dr. Bose, I don't think you've had any problems with guarantees for anything that you've recommended. All the board has ever asked for is just further clarification. That's all. And I just don't think, unless you're prepared to recommend a parity salary for the other middle school principal, I don't think it's right to separate this job out and bring it in at this salary. She's in line with the other middle school principals right now, is my understanding.
That's not true.
With one.
She is not in line with the other middle school principals.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
76, right? 76, 230.
We're starting elementary principals at 72.
72,000 are the elementary principals.
Can I weigh in here a little bit?
Go ahead, Mr. Allen.
I think there's a couple of good issues that have been raised here. And one is, it demonstrates why we have this committee going with the NPAA. We do have problems. And we have the same problems, by the way, with all the staff. I think everybody should know that. And we're working on all that also. But if we're going to get into a personality, which we seem to be doing, and looking at Mrs. Dwell, or Eileen Dwell as a new principal, she does come to us with middle school experience from her previous job, so she is not a new middle school principal. And that is, I don't know what the weighing factors were when deciding on the salary, but there are some mitigating circumstances here. The other is, I don't think it's to the North Penn's best interest to stop everything that's going on now based on a committee that is working. I don't think that we're going to be setting any precedent that can't be changed or is etched in stone by promoting one principal when we've been doing this for years and years. There's years of precedent, and that's what we're trying to fix right now. One more at this time when we need a principal is not going to upset anything as far as I'm concerned. So I would suggest that we do move on this and then move on to Maureen Coffey, which would be the next person on the list.
Mr. Weiss.
Well, in addition to Mr. Allen's comments, which I agree with, we are operating today under Administrative Regulation 2510, which discusses very precisely the determination of beginning salary for newly hired administrators. And it says that the determination of the beginning salary for a newly hired administrator shall be made on a case-by-case basis with consideration of the following: the applicant's current salary, the current salary range for the position within the North Penn School District, the applicant's experience, current salaries of North Penn School District administrators holding similar positions to that being filled by the applicant, and relationship of the applicant's beginning salary to the midpoint. I have no doubt that the committee will address many of the other items that are in this administrative regulation, but we are a long way from completing that task. And as we are currently operating under this administrative regulation, and this is a case-by-case basis with someone with experience in the North Penn School District and extensive experience outside of this school district, I believe this salary is in the current range and will not adversely affect the future work of the board.
I would just like to say, Mrs. Mangel, does anyone in this board have a copy of these 9 levels?
I have asked for that, and I have not yet received it. There is concrete ranges, and there are concrete levels.
You know, it could be that this does fall within the parameters, but I do not have a copy of those 9 levels to see what the starting and cap salaries are for administrators. And I've asked for it yesterday. Mrs. Miller said she didn't know where it was.
Up until a year ago, we did operate by a salary scale.
Okay, folks, wait a minute. Let's bring this back around in organized fashion. Mr. White's finished talking. Mr. Scher will be getting to you. Mr. Hill, you're next.
I said my comments.
Okay. Mrs. Scher.
I'm somewhere in between where Sharice was, a little bit of what Bill had to say. I think we've lost the issue, though. It is that salary scale. Salary scale that was in effect no more than a year and a half ago, absolutely. We are not looking at what the problem is. If there is no salary scale being abided by or being acknowledged here, it may explain why we are going from disorder to chaos with each additional move we make. In that, I will say that on July 17th, this board took 2 actions to adjust 2 salaries, Mr. Feely and Mr. Berland. After both the actions tonight, we have to go back to the table and readjust them to bring them back up to par again, because we've just undone the adjustment that we had just previously made. The parity is not about parities within other districts. The disparity issue is that we are not being consistent in our application of credentials, of job responsibilities, and of job levels and pay levels, because we're obviously not following any set criteria whatsoever. And I've asked for that because it is whether anyone wanted to agree with whether that salary range was too high or too low, whether administrators were getting paid too much or too little, it still gave us something to hang our hat on in an objective range for a pay and an objective positioning of the employee according to whether they were an elementary principal, a middle school principal, a supervisor, or any one of our administrative positions. And as my concern with where we're going is that we do have other employees that we now have to go back to, and which may have been the genesis for such a letter as you have received, I don't know, in concern because they're having a very hard time understanding the message out of this district when someone with decades of experience in secondary level principalship are being assigned salaries 6 months earlier that are $5,000 less than another employee coming to us from another district or rather new to our system. They're having a real hard time understanding what we're doing. I understand everyone's point. We have a fire here. We have to put it out. I'm just concerned that in our haste to grab the hose, we've hooked up to the fuel tank instead of the fire hydrant. And I've become more concerned because each time we've made a move, we've come back to the table to have to adjust 3 or 4 other people, or we've received their resignations because they don't feel they've received a level of respect, or they've called into question what is their value within this system. And this has nothing to do with either one of these employees per se. This is the fact that why aren't we using what is supposed to be existing today while we're waiting for the other? We are by regulation supposed to have an annual review of that salary scale, that 9-step salary scale, and it is supposed to be updated by our very own administrative regs. And now we're told we don't know where it is. There's the concern, and this is why we're coming back with all these conflicts that are dragging individuals into it. I don't know if Ms. Well has the 5 years secondary teaching that's required both of assistant principals and principals. I don't have dates here. I know that that's a part of our job description requirements also. And we're not even dealing that far. We're just looking to see what can be done to clear up the message to our existing staff that's already here, that we do recognize them as valuable to our organization, and that this is more of immediate action that's being taken, and that perhaps they shouldn't be reading into it what everyone else may be or what they might be expected to. I mean, Dr. Bose, something has to be said to these different individuals that are out of scale now.
What makes you think it hasn't been said? It has been said. I want you to know I met personally at length with Dr. Berland, explained what I think is the inequity, and expressed to him my belief that it would be corrected. As a gentleman, he accepted that and said he could wait. He would wait till the end of this year to see for himself. Now, I'd like to ask Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, since you walked into the personnel office and have thoroughly examined everything and put things, in fact, in order, probably the best order that they've been in 10 years, is there a salary schedule in there for administrators?
If there is one, I don't know where it would be, and
I've
even
never
if there was one, it would not be updated.
I think what the board members are talking about is called comp ratio. It's found in that administrative rule and reg that you're alluding to. Some of you have always taken great exception to it. It is part of the motivation that generated this task force, and will consider possibly replacing it with something that is more reasonable, or at least from those various perspectives, more understandable, legible, and applicable than what we've had before, a matter about which many of you have taken great exception. That process is underway. It's already been articulated this evening. But there is no salary guide that I have ever seen in my 3rd year at North Penn, and that Dr. Miller has seen becoming the main occupant of that personnel office. What we have is that administrative reg and this thing called comp ratio for establishing entry-level salaries and adjusting salaries from the entry level to what becomes the base. And Eileen Dwell is now at the base salary, $76,230, that other principals who have been around 3 or more years now occupy. So that is the base for elementary principal salaries. I want you to know that. That's the truth. It's in the record, and it's on the list that you all approved when you acted on freezing those salaries in June. And so this salary recommended for Eileen Dwell is in the middle of the range that now exists between the 3 current middle school principals.
Yeah, but Dr. Bose, the top end salary of this range that you're talking about is almost $90,000.
You're wrong.
And it could be even a little higher?
It's lower.
Well,
We don't have a range.
Folks, she's going from
Then
a
what is
210 calendar to 12 months.
Right.
She's
Well,
going to,
Okay, Don, just so you understand, we have Bert
Vicki.
Hines. I'm looking at a 12-month associate principal at the high school. I'm trying to understand how is it that a middle school principalship, where it falls in the organizational relationship. I would think that in that box of principals somewhere internally and supervisors and things, we have a more detailed organizational chart that assigns the job level and gives you something to work with as you're evaluating which ones are lateral positions and which ones are promotions or higher level positions. And that's what I understood did exist, because I do recall it came up when we created the position of food services. And I was told that the salary being recommended was at it was a lower level on the administrative scale. And certainly had talks with Mr. Schmidt, and at that time had it, I just can't relocate it. But we did have categories, and we did have designations for jobs. And
Mrs. Shear, you just heard Dr. Miller say she's never found such a document. What happened to it?
I don't know, perhaps I could call Mr. Kelly, because he also went through it with me one time.
Perhaps you could.
Perhaps we better change the regulation because it specifically states 9 categories.
Right, it does reference that there are 9 categories, and it also references that there are mid-range assigned to each of those 9 categories.
But it also says the system uses actual job market salary relationships as the basis for determining the correct salary grade for each position.
Within the range.
If that's the
within the
case,
range.
if that's the case, using actual job market salary relationships, that schedule should change yearly to reflect what else goes on in this county.
It's supposed
No,
to be
within the
reviewed.
range of even our own employees, David.
This says job market salary. That means
Right.
outside as compared to inside. And it's
And
on
it
the
includes
first
all
paragraph
positions.
of Reg 2510.
Well, my concern was, I certainly think that we need to fill this void that's there at Penfield. My concerns are for the future and the results that we've seen in recent months. I mean, I think there's a lot of concern within this community. We've had a rollover at Gwinnett Square. I've talked to many of the employees that are departing or intend to depart. And quite frankly, confusion is one of the descriptives, frustration, and a disconnectedness is also another part of it. So I hope, Mrs. Mango, that request by Mr. Feely does bring something productively to the table in ways of identifying the problem and seeking a solution.
Mr. Shaw.
I see that both the committee and the administration are working for a solution to this problem. Obviously, there is a problem, but they are working to try to find a solution to that problem. And, we have to do something right now, and I call for the question.
Okay, may I talk before we call for the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
A number of months ago, 4 to 5 of us, of which I was one, believed that the administration needed a freeze in pay. At that time, it came as a surprise to everybody that we were able to settle with our teachers union on a promised position to the community that it would not be for 1 cent above the cost of living. The cost of living at that time was 3%. The talk being, matters being discussed now with the NPAA is 1%. What I have learned since that time is that this board took a hard line and a stance with the community with the administrative salaries. We are doing that in a vacuum because our neighbors are not doing the same thing. Our neighbors are more than willing to take our administrators that we have provided development to and we've provided experience to, and they're willing to pay them more. And we're finding out every day that we have administrators that can go to our neighbors and get more money. And why stay here? The other thing I'm hearing that is kind of sad, some of you may say, well, that's tough, grow up, is that administrators come up on our agendas, employees come up on our agendas. They know that they are allowed executive sessions for matters of personnel. They know that this board could choose to talk about them as the state law allows in private. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they are talked about at length right here. And I look at this list of those that have left, and I know 4 of them on here that personally told me that they panic when they're on the agenda for a presentation. for a discussion about their salaries, about anything that involves them. Because it isn't kept in this room, it then goes out to a viewing community of thousands and thousands of people. And they feel that they are personally and professionally being diminished. Again, some people are tough, grow up. I sit here and feel diminished every day on the television, believe me. And I say to myself, tough, grow up. Some people can't take it. And I don't have to worry about whether or not I can get a job tomorrow because I'm sitting here. I don't worry about that. There are those that are really taking discussions about themselves on television, in public like this, about their career, their profession, under these circumstances. I don't know of anybody else in the job place that has this done to them. They're being paid with tax dollars, that's right. Nobody at Merck is. But still, these people have feelings, they have considerations, and we have to hear what they are and listen to them. That's why we're going to have this meeting. It deals with morale. We are having morale problems. In the administration and on this board, there's a morale problem. There really is. Gossiping, whispering, and talking behind everybody's backs isn't going to help it. So we're going to have to address it. And there are certainly enough board members, a majority, that are willing to do that. Starting with the administration. We dealt with matters with the union. We dealt with matters recently with staff nurses. If it takes us going from population to population, we might have to do that. And look for what is fair. Look for what is equity, parity, and do what's best. Eileen Dwell is in here for $80,000. I have seen other people come into this district and sit down with the administration. I mean, she's been brought here before this board tonight. I wasn't in that interviewing process. And new people coming in and applying and attempting to gain a new job in this district, which this is a new job for Eileen Dwell, sit there and negotiate. And they've negotiated a price for what they are willing as the determined best candidate by the administration that did that. That's what she was willing to take. Now, we could approve this tonight and she could see this on television tomorrow and say, forget it, I'm going to a neighbor. They don't have cable. Or I'll go to another district. This is the human side of the job. It's beyond the tax dollars. I'm stuck in the middle. I felt there should have been a freeze, and we applied a freeze for, I think it was 6 months. And there's been fallout from it, and we have to face it. Whether we did the right thing or the wrong thing, we have to face it. We see that it hasn't worked perfectly because of the fallout. There's a lot of things that have to be corrected in the personnel office, and Dr. Miller is well aware of what they are. She found things that need to be corrected from the first day she was there and found out we did not have a fair labor standards policy in this district. She got one real quick, didn't you, Dr. Miller, on our books. You're all waiting for the audit. So are we. You can assume that there was much to audit. That's why you're waiting. I ask that you continue to give us time to rectify and straighten out matters in this district that have been happening a long time. This board has been in office 18 months. Trust me, it didn't happen 18 months ago. We have inherited decades of policy changes, rearrangements, realignments, and it's fallen in our lap and we're ready to deal with it. So, to move matters on the best interest of the children, and a willingness on my part to go into the meeting with Feely and his group to discuss parity, to discuss equity. I am willing to move this on tonight and hope that Dr. Berlanda, who I've known, and he's been here 30 years, I had him as a teacher, that we will rectify matters with him. And if it takes one administrator at a time, correcting policies, correcting payroll, correcting a situation here in North Penn, and that's what we might just have to do. Mr. Schilling, you call for the question?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay.
Nay.
Abstention.
Roll call, Mr. Weir.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieger?
Nay.
Mr. Mosey?
No.
Mrs. Scher?
Abstention.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Whites?
Yes.
Ms. Mingle?
Yes.
I have 5 voting yes, 2 voting no, and 1 abstention.
Okay, well, Mr. Sure, you need an abstention paper?
Yes.
I'll send it over.
Okay. Dr. Bose, continue.
And we'll send 2.
Thank you. The next recommendation seeks your approval to appoint Maureen Coffey as principal at Inglewood School effective September 19, 1997, with an annual salary of $72,000.
So moved.
That was a motion by Schilling and a second by White. Board questions starting to the right, Mr. Schilling.
No questions.
Okay. Quick one, can I have some assurance that we will take a review of the one other standing principal? This one is not as outside the range of our existing employees. However, I would like to note, without mentioning of names, that we did have an individual recently adjusted. However, they are now still going to be, I think, out of sync on a salary schedule and evaluation. I'd just like it looked again, please. I think you know, Dr. Bose. If not, can we have
Well,
that
you
brought
know-
forward? Is there an intention?
You know that individual, and I think we're both talking about the same one, was frozen when the board froze all salaries until it made this determination to adjust salaries on the 1% distribution effective December, decided December, and effective January 1998.
No, actually, we had an adjustment July
I
17th to
understand
this
that.
salary level.
That was a correction because the new secretary in Dr. Miller's office did not know this individual changed jobs from assistant principal
Okay.
to a principal. And so, Mrs. Shear,
that
what
was
you're
correct.
remembering is a correction, not a change.
Not an adjustment. Also, you mentioned it was Feely and Berlanda. It was Feely and Hines.
No, we had Feely and Hines. No, I'm talking in relevance to background experience because I'm still a little confused without having the salary scale provided to me. Where an associate principal at a high school level, that new position that we have, is in comparison to, say, a middle school principalship, because in dollars, we have a significant disparity, if you follow me. And I know that's not one to be considered, but that's one.
I think our dilemma
Right.
and our difficulty tonight certainly certifies that our approach to compensating administrative staff is in grave need of overhaul.
And in light of the comments that were made, I'd just like to add, I have spoken to several people that have left, and yes, the relationship of the money is only in the meaning, in the value in the organization, and it becomes a greater issue, not so much as the dollars, but in the confusion, particularly when they see peers of equal or less tenure and background within the district at larger salaries. That generates the jealousy or perhaps the sense of insecurity or undervalued sentiments that I've heard. I'd also say that a lot of it the primary reason given to me was internal management issues. And I think that needs to be on record.
Well, the three issues
We may
that
all be hearing something different, but I will say that we are beyond
The three
salary
issues mentioned that will be discussed with that group is money, this board, and administration.
Yes, I realize. I'm sorry I scattered. However, there was some comments that were challenges there that I felt didn't need to be addressed.
Mr. Hill?
I appreciate
No,
that,
I guess-
Dr. Booth.
I guess I get a little frustrated listening to all the dialogue, in the respect that I went into great detail explaining what this committee that I'm trying to help chair, do with the meet and discuss with the administrators to resolve, or hopefully resolve, or bring to focus all of these things we've been dialoguing about. Give us a chance. I can't fix them tonight, we can't fix them tomorrow, but we're working at it, and hopefully within the next month or two, we can bring something forward to the board that has meaning, and we can take care of this. But we keep bringing up all the problems. I understand there's problems. That's what I'm trying. That's why the committee's there, trying to resolve them. But we can't. I'm trying to get there. I'm a little, Donna. Just to one point, as a corollary of this dialogue, is that I'm a little. I don't know what the right adjective, chagrin, or a little concerned about having a meeting. Having the administrators having the meeting with the full board, just as we're getting started with the committee work. We're kind of going off on two paths, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. I figure if you're going to do it for the whole committee, then don't have a subcommittee doing it.
No, that's it. My concern, that committee is set aside, meet and discuss. There's also the merit compensation, I believe that's the same committee.
Right.
On that merit pay. That's separate work. This is to deal with issues of morale. This is something that I believe more than 3 board members should be hearing. And I believe it's the wish of the NPAA to be able to say the same thing to 9 board members instead of certain things to 3 board members. And we're all going to make the decision. We need to hear from the ground floor. The compensation under that merit pay, that memo, that's different work from the issues here regarding morale as it relates to money, this board, and the administration.
Mrs. Mengel, if I can back up on Mr. Hill.
Okay.
Morale did come up at the meeting last week. We asked for clarification, and Mr. Feely told us that, in ongoing meetings, that he would be bringing those issues forward. And I have the same concern Mr. Hill has. If they're going to meet with the entire board, then maybe we don't need this committee.
The committee can do the work on the merit pay. This is personnel at its most critical time, and 9 of us want to hear what they have to say. 9 of us want to hear what they have to say. That's only being fair. We're at a critical point.
We're out of turn.
Well, let me get around the board here and keep this organized. Mr. Weiss, anything? Mr. Hill, were you finished? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm finished.
Mr. Allen?
No.
Mr. Frieden?
My only comment in that regard is that, that's fine, but the merit pay issues that were discussed and laid out, and I have my notes from that day, were things that the board members asked of the administrators to bring back to the committee. They can do that just as easily to 9 board members. What we asked them to come back with dealt specifically with job descriptions, entry-level compensation, the morale issues, the possibility of entering the discussion with salary caps for the administration. We're not saying that that's what's going to happen. Those are different things that we've heard at different times 9 board members share with us. And so we brought those issues forward, and they're in the process, is my understanding, of developing those things and bringing them forward. But they can do that just as easily to a board of 9 as they can to a committee as
Whatever is
3.
convenient and whatever can cut down on meeting times on the board and the administration, they already tested. That's fine. If that's what you wish, that's fine. Let's do it.
Well, I agree with Pat. I mean, if it's the will of the entire board to meet with the NPAA, then let's just meet with them on the whole thing.
Great. Mr. Mosey, anything
Well,
else?
that was the concern I have,
Okay.
is the fact that, is this going to be a one-time meeting with the board, or is this going to be ongoing meetings with the board, and then we're going to have ongoing meetings with them with our committee? Because it's my feeling if we're going to do that, it's going to be counterproductive. Because you're trying to separate the 1% merit performance pay issue and some of the benefits aside from morale. Mr. Hill asked Mr. Feely, didn't ask him, he made a statement at the meeting that he feels it's not only salary, there are morale issues. There are many issues that go into this. It was our hope that this committee would iron all these things out and then come back to the board with recommendations. But I'm in agreement with Mr. Hill that if they're going to meet with the board on a periodic basis, and they're going to meet with our committee on a periodic basis, that's redundancy, and you're going to have to make a determination what you want to do.
And we'll learn that. When 9 board members hear how bad things are from the administration, we're at a critical time. We are in a critical time. Now, we can either have 3 people deal with it or 9 that are responsible to deal with it.
And I personally
we're
would prefer the 9.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be.
Yeah, you're also 1 of 9 responsible, right?
But I don't want to be accountable from this committee of bringing forward something to the board that the majority of the board is going to support either. I'm not interested in wasting my time with that. So I think it would be far more proactive and productive to bring it forward to the entire board. And let's just discuss all the issues in front of the entire board.
Okay. We are on a, there was a motion, there was a second, was there not?
Yes.
On C3, thank you, Mr. White. All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Okay, Dr. Bose.
Recommend authorizing the superintendent to add 4 more elementary teachers to the allocation of teacher personnel for the 1997-98 school year, effective immediately.
Second?
Okay. Everybody's making a motion, that's a good sign. That was Mr. Hill, was that your motion?
No, it's Mr. Weiss.
Mr. Allen? Motion, Mr. White's was the second. Board questions to the left, Mr. Mosey.
You want to add 4 more teachers? What is the distribution of them, Dr. Bose? You mentioned 3 schools here, Gwinnett Square, North Wales, and Montgomery.
Right now on the 4th day, with the confirmed enrollments, my inclination would be Gwinnett Square, Montgomery, and North Wales.
What grade?
To be determined in consultation with the principal.
I'm not going to get in debate with you, but it was my understanding at the last board meeting that you were going to wait till you got the 10-day reports before you made any recommendations.
What date are they?
Okay.
Mrs. Krieger?
Dr. Bose, on the distribution, I have 3 schools, 4 teachers. So I'm assuming that at one school, you will be assigning 2 separate positions, is that correct?
Or a 4th school.
Or a 4th school?
Yeah, one that's in.
Okay. How soon would you see, and I am particularly interested at Montgomery,
Before the end of the week,
that the teacher would be assigned?
yes.
Is it safe to say that you've already discussed this with the building principal?
Yes.
Okay. And is he prepared? Is there a room?
Yes.
Okay. Are we losing any other rooms?
We might lose some art and music rooms.
Okay. I guess the only issue that I've had, and I've had a zillion calls on this particular issue, and I chose to discuss with Dr. Hassler on several different occasions, going back about 4 weeks now, on this particular problem. I was very disappointed, Dr. Bose, that there wasn't a more proactive resolution brought about before the start of school. Because knowing that there are now 4 areas where we need to put in more teachers, I guess the question that still lingers in my mind is, as of Friday, we had 6 different grades across the district, K through 6, where there were classes way under enrollment. And I would have liked to have seen perhaps a reassignment administratively of those classes, or those teachers, if you will, prior to the start of school. We're adding more teachers. It's a recurring expense. The particular situation in Montgomery has been a situation that has been pretty consistent, and I feel very, I feel a little odd because my daughter is in this situation. And I really didn't have a problem to start out with 30, 30, and 31. But then when they broke up into their transitional courses for math and social studies and science, because their ability grouped, it created a completely different scenario, and one that was totally unacceptable and really wasn't understood by the parents until Monday. because the kids took their math tests on Friday and were assigned to their math groups. Now, there's another situation going on in this district that this is all brought about, which the board may or may not be aware of. And there are staffing projects, if you will, or educational projects, one in particular, that are going on in the district in some of these schools. One I know of for sure, Gwinnett Square, where we have a teacher who has been looped with her 5th grade class from last year into 6th grade this year, and Mrs. Shearer's daughter's in that situation, so I'll let her have the opportunity to describe that a little bit better. But the problem that it has created is that at the 6th grade level at Gwinnett Square, there are, and Vicki, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 6th grade classes. The looping situation was the reason why they have 5 classes. But if that project had not been instituted there, those same children divided up into those 5 classes would have fit in the 4 within the guidelines. This is not the only situation with looping that's going on. And it's a situation that the board needs to be aware about because it's an educational project that has been introduced here, and most assuredly it has created an enrollment situation because at Gwinnett Square, the children in the 6th grade are heterogeneously grouped. But at Montgomery, where you have 43 children in a math class, they're ability grouped. So not only do we have disparity in the way we assign teachers per enrollment, but now we have a disparity with the type of education we're providing and the different programs. I don't get it. I know that at no time in the last, this will be my 6th year here, and all the years that I've sat out in that audience, have I ever heard a presentation brought forward to any of the previous boards in regards to looping, but yet it's happening at Bridle Path, Hatfield, now we know it's happening at Gwinnett Square, and it's creating a staffing problem in the district. And that, as a sub-issue to this, needs to be addressed. My personal preference, Mrs. Mangle, I felt that this should have been handled administratively by the district, by our administrators, prior to the start of school. But since it wasn't, even though it would not be a popular resolution, I still think in order to maintain the budget that was approved, since knowing there are 6 different grades, elementary, district-wide, where teachers can be shifted, I think it's time for the board to take the initiative to do that. Because I don't think it's right that we're adding teaching positions when we have classrooms in this district with 18 and 19 children in it. I don't think it's right. And I would like the board to consider that. I know that that's not the motion.
No, but what we can do is Dr. Hassler and Dr. Bowes, can you prepare by the next meeting all the details to this program?
I don't know, are we talking about looping?
This,
Or are we talking about
Well, I think we should probably
What are we talking
subtext that to a little, maybe later in the discussion. But my concern is how are we is this board prepared to hire 4 new teachers when we know that there are 6 grades out there where the children are in classrooms under the guidelines?
Are you
To get the
are you
children over?
suggesting?
No, I'm
redistricting?
suggesting that we
Move teachers where you
administratively
need them.
move the teachers where we
Existing
need them,
Are you
to stay
suggesting
within the parameters of the budget that we approved.
then that we disband those classes, reconfigurate them at a higher class size and move a teacher somewhere else? You have the authority to do that, Mrs. Krieger. Why don't you make the motion?
I think there's an motion on the floor. What would be the proper thing to do, Mr.
I would
Smith?
dispose of the motion on the floor, but you're not talking about that motion. You're talking about something else.
I think somebody made the motion in second, didn't you?
Yes.
Right.
Well, this is a discussion on the
To hire
motion.
4 teachers.
Not to disband the class and move a teacher.
May I ask, is the rest of the board aware that there are these 6 grades? Different grades out there that are understaffed or that are under-enrolled? That's my point. I mean, I am not really, my daughter's in this situation.
Okay, let me.
And I
let me-
understand what a shift like that would create. But I'm willing to bite the bullet on it. Because in my opinion,
We're not willing to bite the bullet.
well, you're still gonna get a
Can
teacher.
I call for questions,
Okay, wait a
please?
minute,
I mean, there is a
wait a minute.
You're
motion
still
on the
gonna
floor.
get a teacher.
Mrs. Krieger, let me, yes, please.
I mean, we're getting off a rabbit trail here. Can we
Okay.
call for a question? I
Mr.
mean, really?
Shelley?
There's no rabbit trail.
Yes, there
That's
is.
unfair to the
I
rest
believe
of
it
this
is.
board, not my
Folks, let me finish up with other board members that may wish to speak. Mrs. Krieger, let me move on to Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen.
Well, it's, without understanding looping, I would say that I have always been a proponent of have enough teachers to teach the kids. And I've always argued that point, so I'm going to follow the recommendation of the superintendent and vote to hire 4 new teachers.
Mr. White.
I have no comments.
Mr. Hill.
No comment.
Mrs. Shore.
I think that it should be noted, I thought Dr. Bose was going to make a statement to the effect, but I've spoken with Dr. Hassler. And I guess to apologize to the board regarding the frustration that was expressed regarding disparity in salaries. Perhaps it could be best understood knowing that in the beginning days of this week, it's only Tuesday. And between Monday and Tuesday, I found disparities also, class sizes disparities that were driven actually by volunteer projects that were being initiated at a time when we would want to maintain as much flexibility as possible, which leaves me bewildered and frustrated. Disparities in implementation of programs, and disparity between being told that we've been on a heterogeneous math group rather than ability grouping, only to find out later that another situation is being excused because of ability grouping. So we have, in effect, returned to the days where we have different things going on in different buildings. Dr. Hassler, to his credit, is doing his best to try to catch up with it. He has assured me that they will work to put together background information as much as they can to bring this forward to not only us as a board, but to this community as a whole. Beyond the dollars and cents, I'd like to know what the educational goals are behind these new initiatives. What were our expectations? What are we hoping to achieve, as well as the ramifications? And an evaluation of the social and emotional impacts that we're having with these children. And when we come right back down to it, I can't disagree with the proposal by Mrs. Krieger about what might be beneficial in rearranging these students. But I've got to tell you, us at Gwinnett Square, we've got a lot to deal with. We had Dr. Brooke Stevenson say goodbye on the first day of school, as well as Mary Kay Feely saying hello, only to turn around to find out she's saying goodbye to us the next day, practically. I mean, she will be there and she will be serving us, and we'll have another principal. And there's an excellent teaching staff at that school. There's a lot of adjustments. I don't know if it's fair right now to expect the children to pay the price for implementation snafus that they had nothing to do with, that neither they nor their parents were asked their opinions of prior to them being introduced into them. And with that position that we sit in here right now, I'm sorry, I think I'd have to sacrifice the practical issues of what could be done and hope that we can seek resolution to see that we have a better handle on our planning and our implementation, and have a review of the consequences, not only to the student body, but financial and implementation evaluations before any other further projects come through. And I've had Dr. Hassler say that he is going to work to strive to convey that message, correct?
Correct.
And you would expect by the next meeting, at least we could go through the different pilots that
I'll have a
you've observed?
clarification on the looping program and also some of our grouping practices.
And some recommendations as to whether or not you're looking to standardize any of this within our elementary school? Okay, I appreciate that. Mrs. Krieger, I'm only going to appeal to you right now that I think we're already too far into this to catch up.
I agree.
If we had recognized this
agree.
in July or August, perhaps.
I agree. I just feel that it's unfortunate that,
It is
that
unfortunate.
this wasn't dealt with administratively before the start of school. I'm looking at this, you
I
know,
know.
like I clarified, my daughter is in this particular situation at Montgomery. However, I still recognize my fiscal responsibility. And knowing that this board worked very hard, yourself and Mr. Mosey included, to bring forward a decent budget tonight, including these 4 teachers, we've increased that budget for next year quite a bit. And it may not, like I said, it may not be a popular solution. It's one I felt needed to be brought out and discussed by the board. I didn't expect anybody to support it because it's not a popular thing to do now that school has started. And my problem is, and it always has been and it will continue to be so, is that this board continuously is asked to put out all kinds of fires rather than have the administrators at times deal with things more proactively so that we don't get into these situations where our backs are against the wall.
I think in the math class, Dr. Hassler, there's nothing to preclude. This is not even associated with the teachers. I understand the teaching staff is there. It's a disparity in the assignments. Is there any hope of resolving Mrs. Krieger's issue, which is really restricted to the math breakout, without any?
No, it
I'm
impacts
sorry.
everything. It impacts.
It's also social studies and science.
Okay.
Oh, they're under a
All of their majors
I see.
are grouped like that.
You know, apologize, but we have a different grouping system in our 6th grade at Gwinnett Square. So we are dealing with a different, we're not even grouping, we're not breaking out for our classes at Gwinnett Square.
Sharing the desks and sitting on countertops to study math.
Okay, folks, wait, one moment.
Acceptable. We want another teacher for our students.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please, let me bring this back. Mrs. Scher, are you finished? You finished?
Mrs. Mangle, yes, I am.
Thank you. Mr. Schilling.
I think it's unfair to say that the administration is not trying to deal with this. I believe they are trying to deal with it. I don't always think that they try to deal with it. In all sincerity, Mrs. Krieger, I listen to you talk, and I listen to you talk, and I watch you accuse people, and I think your opinion, you're entitled to it, but I also believe that, I see certain people in the administration who do try their hardest to do the best they can for our community. Whether you want to agree with that or not, that's your right, that's your opinion. I disagree with you. Okay?
Anything?
No comment.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we can do 2 things tonight. I can believe that we can hire 4 teachers and accommodate the teachers' needs that are immediately before us. I also believe that, Dr. Hassler, I need you by the 19th, along with Dr. Bose, to bring to this board an understanding of the looping program, what is happening at Gwinnett Square, and to catch this board up to speed. I think I just heard a little bit about it in the hallways tonight, but I understand that there's some good points about it. I believe the teacher that has that looping class was the Pennsylvania State Teacher awardee, and so there's some positives here that need to come out with some of the speculation that's oozing out.
Could I just,
So would you have that ready by the 19th and be on the agenda? Secretary Weir, would you add that to the agenda? I want him to have the floor for that.
I would just like to clarify, too, that where we are undersubscribed in some of the classes, where we have 18 and 19, that is primarily at the primary level. And the decision was to leave those classes at that size so that we don't get right up to the 25, which is our uppermost level. So we did look at it, we did make a decision, and decided to stay there at the primary level.
How did we get to we wanted to?
Primary level, I said.
Which is what?
K through 3.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, wait a minute. Also, something, I don't know if Dr. Bose had mentioned it, but a school to be considered for that 4th position, if it's approved tonight, I think there's 5 votes at least. There's 3 schools named, and there is one yet to be determined. Under determination for sure is Montgomery Elementary, possibly for the 2nd one also. So that is not, that's not a promise. We're waiting on more of the count. Mrs. Hatfield, put there that is not a promise. that I know that Dr. Bose had shared with me on the way in here, and I believe he may have mentioned it, that the other school possibility for that 4th teacher was Montgomery getting to it. Let's call for the question. That I'm not sure. And a lot of the determination has to be made with the principal and Dr. Bose. We got to give him that right and that authority to work that out.
Madam President, I'd like to call for the question.
All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Thank you. Dr. Bose, continue.
We're now dealing with nominations, resignations, position changes, and leaves of absence.
Okay, just hold. Board members, just hold. Cameraman Berger, how much time do we have, sir?
There's only one item.
Thank you, sir.
That finishes 10 minutes.
Donna, you are correct. Ashley loves her teacher. I don't have a problem necessarily with it, that we're catching up with it now.
Hey, I have no idea what's going on here. Let's have another agenda. Go ahead, Dr.
The 2 professional staff and 11 support staff appointments are recommended for your approval as presented on VA-2.
Second.
Motion by Allen, a second by Whites. Question starting to the right, Mr. Schilling.
No, thank you.
Around?
I have one question, if I can, Mrs. Mangle. During the budget process, and maybe you can answer this for me, Dr. and Mrs. Miller, we were told that we would need 13 and a half teachers. And we put in the budget for it. That included some regular teachers as well as special ed. We also had 16 people that took ERIP. And I see going back through the notes that we hired approximately 70 teachers, and tonight it'll be now 74. If I take the 13 and a half, say 14, and the 16 ERIPs, that comes out to 30. Did we have 40 more additional retirees? I refer to the inside information
No, Mr. Mosey, we did not
where
have
we
more,
greeted 70 new staff members.
we did not have more retirees. We had, that were under ERIP, we had a few more retirees who were not. We also had people who resigned and went to, other places, moved away.
No, what I'm saying is I went back through the minutes, and I saw, for example, one night we hired 41 teachers.
That's correct.
Okay. What I'm saying is we welcomed 70 new teachers.
That's correct.
And
More than that, Mr. Mosey.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is I can account for the 13 and a half, and let's round it off, say 14 we budgeted for in the budget, 16 ERIPs, that comes out to 30. I just want to know, the other 40 teachers, were they additional retirees or resignations?
You're only counting the elementary teachers, Mr. Mosey. We also approved 8 secondary teachers that were new positions and 5 special ed that were brand-new positions. In addition to that came to a total of 26.5 brand-new positions that we had never had before. In addition to that, you're right, we did have 16 people who took the ERIP. We also had other people who did retire, people who did resign, people who went on leaves, took sabbaticals, so that they all had to be replaced either with full-time contracted people if they were leaving their position, or long-term substitute positions for the year if they were people going out on leave.
Okay.
So a lot of the people that were coming in as new, have to have the induction as well, so that they're prepared for the new year.
Okay, I was just concerned because when I saw 70, and then I tried to go back through the minutes and you know, I didn't see the resignations and the retirements and so forth adding up to an additional 40. It just seemed like an awful large number.
They were all there, Mr. Mosey.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Thank you.
As per resignations, your approval to accept resignations of 2 professional staff and 5 support staff presented on BA3 is recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Schilling, second by White. Board questions starting with the left, Mr. Mosley.
Just one, on Mr. Shipman. Will he be paid for the 9 days that,
Mr. Shipman never worked for us.
okay, that's what I wanted to clarify
Was an
because,
error in reporting,
okay,
never worked a day.
thank you.
Moran?
I will be abstaining, unless you want to separate, but I'll be abstaining on the motion. It wasn't very well.
Any other questions?
Okay, you've explained this is not going to be treated as a resignation, although we've titled it. It was actually a withdrawal. Could we just rescind?
We appointed it.
Right.
You have to resign from an appointment, whether it's 40 years from now or whether you never worked.
Okay, quite frankly, I thought it would be a rescinding of our previous vote because it was an effective date to be
Well,
determined.
you may have a good point. I think the solicitor should go on.
I have no problem with the resignation because effectively that's what happened. You really did not rescind your prior vote. It wasn't your decision.
Okay, even though we never effectively became an active employee. We had no starting date, no effective date, and no further. I would suggest that the assigned title be altered to match the very controversial title into which he was officially assigned in the original motion. There was quite a bit of controversy regarding the fact that this gentleman could not be assigned the very title that sits on this page. So could we read that to him, be amended for the Director of Student Services? And drop the last...
That was the title to which he was appointed, and he was quite eligible to hold that job as he has held it elsewhere.
Dr. Bose, we did not call him Director of Student Services and Special Ed. The new job description and the new title, which underwent so much controversy, was that it had to be altered to the Director of Student Services.
Dr. Miller? We can correct that. We can make it Director of Student Services and just take off "and Special Education."
You're right. I stand corrected.
I was like,
I did not
well,
say
we
that.
couldn't miss...
Mr. Schilling?
After all we went through with that, thank you.
All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay.
I abstain.
There is one position change for 1 support staff presented on BA3, which is recommended for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Schilling, second by Mosey. Thank you. Questions to the right? Left? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Thank you.
There are 2 salary corrections for 2 support staff. The agenda does not show this, but they are contained on BA3, and that is recommended for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Shear, second by Mosey. Questions left? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay. Thank you.
And there are 3 leaves of absence requested to be approved by you, 1 professional staff and 2 support staff contained on BA3 and 4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Schilling, second by Mosey. Questions right, Mr. Schilling?
No question.
Left?
Quick
I
question
would
here.
just like to wish Mrs. Oates the best. I hope that she has a healthy child.
Well, I have a quick
And-
question on that.
Oh, did you start with?
Go ahead. No, she
Oh.
started with John.
And just a question on the reading specialists. Are they entitled to paid sabbaticals, Dr.?
Reading
Yes,
specialists?
Mrs. the Francis Cruz.
All
Professional.
professional staff and administrators are entitled to sabbaticals, yes.
Okay.
She's a teacher. reading
She is a
specialist
teacher, yes.
Oh, okay, all right, it just says reading specialist, I wasn't sure if that
Sure.
was
Sure, that's
a
what I
teacher or if that was.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yeah. Judy, just make sure this date is correct. We have her on a 1-month maternity, is that correct?
6 weeks.
Okay, so that is, we do have that right. I just wanted to be sure, because I was like,
It is correct.
my gosh, the way time's been flying lately. I do wish her well. That time will go quickly, though, I'm sure. For her.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I have one
Wait, we
thing to
didn't take the
say.
vote.
We didn't vote, we take a vote.
My apologies.
Take a vote.
My apologies.
I'll
Go
call
ahead,
for the
Mr.
question.
Hill.
Oh,
That-
sorry, no.
Go ahead.
Oh, I have to announce that I became a grandfather last week.
Oh, man.
First girl.
Here's a cigar.
We don't vote on that.
No, and no cigar.
And he does not qualify for maternity leave, or that Family Leave Act, he does not qualify. Is that correct, Dr. Miller? We need a vote. All in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed would say nay.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.